The quest for champion rolls through the Wild West and the deep heart of Texas, where 20 turns become the next challenge for a field looking to finish the regular season at the top. 20 turns encapsulate the 11th round, where tonight we welcome you to the virtual circuit of the Americas track and the second road course race of the 2022 Four-Wide Racing Cup Series season, of course in our season number 4 campaign. It's a blistering day in Sim, but the temperatures will only boil. Alongside Francisco Bacchiao atop the broadcast booth on the main front straightaway, my name is Kenneth Bueno. Francisco, of course, the biggest thing to note about our trip to Austin, Texas, is this the first time we've ever been here. We have a road course race on tally at Road America earlier in the campaign to maybe give us reference, but today's going to be all about unpredictability.
Yeah, we're very excited to be here at Circuit of the Americas, Kenneth. A fantastic road course, which so far in its 2 NASCAR Cup Series races has given us some fantastic racing both in the wet and in the dry. We saw Ross Chastain able to take the win on a last lap move versus AJ Allmendinger in a thriller finish there. We're going to see if somebody here is either going to have to do a similar move or if they're able to be a little bit more dominant and just kind of pull away, which is what we normally see at road courses. But unlike Road America, which is the last road course we were at, we saw a fantastic battle for the lead all race long with Lance Hill and with, I believe it was Lawson Peel. So if we're able to see something like that again, I think it'll be a thrill for us.
Definitely is. Hopefully we can get a battle like that. Maybe we end up seeing the second time that Peel and Hill go back-to-back. They've been very quick in practice, so we'll see if that ends up becoming a reality. But you look overhead in Sim at Circuit of the Americas, but we'll take a closer look at it via our track map, of course, with our images provided to us by Google Earth. And Francisco, you know a lot about this track. You're a Formula One fan. This track was introduced in 2012, and it's been a staple of the Formula One calendar at one point, the only American circuit in that season.
Yeah, of course, Circuit of the Americas opened in 2012, as you mentioned, and that same year F1 started coming here. It's a 3.426 mile racetrack in Austin, Texas, with 20 turns on this racetrack. Of course, the FIA Grade 1 circuit to be able to allow the Formula One cars to race here. I believe Sebastian Vettel won the inaugural race here, and ever since the hybrid era, we saw a lot of Mercedes dominance with a Kimi Raikkonen win there in 2018, and of course Max Verstappen, the most recent winner in Formula One on this racetrack. In the NASCAR Cup Series side, we saw Chase Elliott take the win in the rain-shortened race just last year, and of course this year, as I mentioned, Ross Chastain taking the win. We also saw a fantastic finish to the Truck Series this year, which saw I already forgot who won, but it was not that long ago. We saw a fantastic finish there. It was actually Ben Rhodes that won, I believe. So a great finish there. Xfinity Series racing has been great here. I mean, it was a bit of a wonder how the road course racing here with the stock cars would be, Kenneth, when it was first announced in 2020 that they would run here in 2021. And I think sort of it's kind of lived up to a good state. I feel like with the races we've had here so far, it's definitely proven that it might be a permanent place on the calendar.
It probably will be, and especially with the finish that the Cup Series had this year, I think that NASCAR is going to be willing to bring it back in 2023. And of course, with Formula One, with NASCAR, they also host a lot of other racing companies, a lot of racing organizations. I believe there's been motorcycle racing here, there's been Trans Am racing here. At one point there was IndyCar racing, where I believe Colton Herta was able to grab his first ever IndyCar win at his very young age, and it happened right here at Austin, Texas. So I mean, there's been a lot of great racing here from many different organizations at top levels of national eligibility, national prestige, or international prestige in the case of Formula One. But there is, of course, a reason why this track is featured on all those schedules is because of its difficulty. It is very hard to get around this track without having at least a minor slip-up or at least something to question at, especially with these stock cars and these ones that really don't have a lot of grip, Francisco.
Yeah, the stock cars are always going to be sliding around. Even with the next gen, they were able to sort of make a new package for the road course racing. It naturally built into the race car. It goes a couple of seconds faster per laps, and it has the extra gear, which is geared towards the road racings. And we saw it on display at Circuit of the Americas earlier, about a month ago, with the NASCAR Cup Series. And you know, I'm interested in seeing how it plays a role here. Of course, we've seen the cars taking road racing action in this series already at Road America. We still have one left, at least in Watkins Glen, just a couple of races down the line. And, you know, we of course Watkins Glen, it's more of a standardized road course for stock car racing. We've been going there for a lot longer, a lot more races there, so we kind of know what to expect. But with Circuit of the Americas being new, we really just don't know what to expect. I mean, we can kind of look back at the real races, see how the trends there have gone. I think the only thing you can really presume is that there's going to be chaos going into turn one.
Yeah, turn one is probably the biggest point of notice for this Circuit of the Americas track. When you roll up the hill, have to be hard on the brakes. You got to make sure you make that very tight left-hander, or else you may be either into the gravel, off track, into the barriers, and it could spell disaster for you. There's a quick look at the schedule just before we get started here from Austin, Texas. Of course, Road America and Circuit of the Americas, two of the newest road course venues in this 4-wide Cup Season 4 schedule. Very close to one another, about a separation of about 2 or so races. But that's going to take a while. We're going to go on an oval stint before we end up at the last road course race of the season, which will, of course, be in Watkins Glen up in the Northeast. New York is where we're going to find that. Right now, though, drivers are on the grid, not typically on pit road. They're on the back straightaway, but nonetheless, they are behind the iRacing official pace car. It means it's our time to take a look at your starting grid, see exactly where every driver and your favorite driver will be lining up here tonight in the second road course race of the 2022 campaign. It's a fast lap for Austin Riddy in the 11, former winner at Daytona earlier this season. He's going to look to have this race start as best as possible from the pole. It's a 2:13.637 to lead us to the green flag first. And Lawson Peel, he was a heavy titan against Lance Hill a couple of weeks back at Road America. He's going to look to get some redemption.
In that second row, Craig Lonslonger is going to be starting from the third. A good effort on the road course by him. And, of course, the guy who won Road America, Lance Hill, his first win came there. A pretty solid lap time to put him up in P4.
Also very close to the win at Indianapolis just a couple of weeks back. Brandon Banks will line up the top 5 with a 2:16.388. And it's Stock's Motorsports' Colin Forster. I believe he didn't show up at Pocono a couple of weeks back, so good to see him as he starts P6.
Eric Schaefer, a winner this season, will start in P7 with Adam Alishire down in P8.
Look, tour number 5, top 10. Cody Neal in the 35 puts up a solid qualifying effort. Matt Roberts will be on his outside in 10th.
And those are the last of those to take time. In 11th, it's Brian M. Smith, who we saw struggled at Road America. We're going to see if he's going to try and come back. And Kyle Benson, 2 road course aces there in that 6th row.
There's going to be a lot of great drivers to this field. You look at defending champion AJ Green, who starts 15th. And this is the lineup all the way down to 25th. And Jesse Breeze in the 00, who did not set qualifying time. So he's going to ride shotgun here tonight for the virtual Circuit of the Americas. Why don't we take a look at the weather before we get started? One thing to note about Austin, Texas is that it is very hot, but fortunately we are not in the triple digits for our track temperature. 88 degrees, 71 degrees in the air, but it is a beautiful day regardless in sim. Partly cloudy conditions, winds slightly stronger to the southwest. Usually we see around 4 to 5 miles per hour in any one of these races, but we've got digits over 10, 11, and 12 to the southeast. But no humidity, no fog, no nothing to distract the drivers. It's a beautiful day in sim. Are ready to get things started as the field will come through the final batch of corners, and they'll wrap off turn number 20 so they can take the green flag. There's the wrap to pit road, where the iRacing official pace car will make that turn to the left, and it'll be Austin Riddy, Lawson Peel, the 2 that will bring us to the green. There's the pace car all the way on the right. Riddy gonna have discretion here to bring us to green. We're road course racing for the 2nd time this season from Circuit of the Americas.
And there you see an aggressive block by Riddy going into turn 1. They're going 3, 4, 5 wide into turn 1. You see cars already going off towards the back there. A couple of spinners a little bit further back. Looks like one car around, but several cars going wide, trying to funnel their way down to the exit of turn 1. Riddy, though, able to get away in the lead of the race. You see the cars following through. There's Lawson Peel, Craig Lonslonger, and this is where you want to get single file. These S's, man, they're just so tough to navigate by yourself, let alone when you have somebody next to you. Colin Forster has moved his way up. Lance Hill did not have the start he wanted. He's dropped several positions. He's struggling to get those tire temperatures up. You see him lose another one right there, but a dream start for your pole sitter.
A beautiful jump right there for at least the top 2, top 3, as Austin Riddy will hap off this left-hander, will go diving onto the brakes. This is a very tough part of this section where Alex Bowman got into contact with a couple of drivers in the truck race earlier this year. But Austin Reedy clearing off. This is going to be the fastest part of this Circuit of the Americas track. A very long back straightaway that moves up the hill and will transfer into another heavy braking zone to the left hand. Unfortunately, though, majority of the field remained rather clean. Didn't see any large scuffles apart from maybe some guys going over and out through the off sections of the track. But so far, everything very clean. Here's a look from second as Craig Lonslarger tries to fend off Colin Forster.
You can see the battle for second there. Speaking, and this is probably, look at that move by Smith there. He's going to get a little bit into the curb and almost into the side of Forster. They're going to have to really check up. That's going to cost them a good amount of time. There you see Hill a little bit further back in that GoPro machine. A dive here by the 99 to the inside. He's going to go wide a little bit. Oh, and there's a spinner right there, the 93 of Kinsey. I think there was contact with Brian M. Smith up ahead on the move we were watching. But as I was saying, Kenneth, this is probably the toughest part of the racetrack with these particular cars because there's a lot. It's very twisty. You see Smith sideways. And and he's going to actually spin. It looked like he was going to save that. Around goes Brian and Smith at the end of lap 1 off of turn 18. He's going to try and get it going and almost makes contact with the car. You see guys having to take avoiding action, and wow, that was not the opening lap he was looking for.
That was a very tough opening lap. As Smith will go around again. That's off turn 20. He's going to slam into the guardrail. Will this spell the end for Smith already? It looks like he's immediately going to take a step down to pit road. Fortunately, it is a very long course, so even if he does lose time on pit road, he can mostly gain that back. And he's going to step in. Looks like the fast pair might be deployed there on the 78. And for Smith, being one of the best road course racers we've seen in this 4-wide Cup field, already struggling the opening lap. And speaking of which, defending race winner at a road course, Hill is deep into the tire barriers.
Tony Kivitz off of turn 1 as well. We got a couple cars having issues around the racetrack right now, Kenneth. Another one just went wide. Michael Newbraw issues in turn 1 as well. A lot of guys struggling to get around the race course right now. I mean, it is just showing how difficult it is to navigate around the racetrack. We also saw, I believe, another car around. Tyler Murray was also spinning in the S section. A lot of trouble. It's hard to keep up with.
Let's try to find out what happened to the 38 of Lance Hill. And this is a big hit. Of course, Hill is locked into the playoffs, so this really wouldn't mean much being out of this race. But this is just huge. The car steps out and could not save and just got stuck there on the barriers. And even worse than for Smith, he could easily get to pit road because he had overshot and actually spun off of turn 20. For Hill, he had to take the toe to pit road. So it looks like for Smith and Hill, this is a disastrous first opening laps here at Circuit of the Americas, and that only could give the 12 of Lawson Peel maybe more insurance because he knows, hey, I don't got to battle with Lance Hill anymore because he's theatrically really out of this race based off that incident, and I can just chug along here, try to catch up to Austin Reedy.
Yeah, but Austin Reedy has obviously proven that he's got some pace. You see Forster struggling with the rear tires there. So you can't discount the guy leading the race. He's definitely got some speed right now, and he's going to be someone you have to take into account before the end of this. Craig Lonslarger has shown some pace right now, still riding tough in that P3, not too far behind. And of course, a guy we know that is generally good at the road courses in Kyle Benson. He hasn't been showing up too much of late, unfortunately for him, but he's here tonight, and he's going to try and make some noise. There you see him in that number 10 machine, a little bit of slide off of turn 20. He's going to try and keep it straight, but he's able to go out on the front straightaway to start lap 3, and he's up into the 4th spot.
Take a look at Benson here diving into turn 1. This is a really tough part of the section, and it looks like Benson just overshoots it quite a bit. There's a lot of runoff there before you get to that actually red and white curbing there, so Benson all good. And we'll talk a little bit about Kyle Benson's paint scheme, an orthodox look to this 10, and it looks like it was probably drawn in Microsoft Paint. But nonetheless, it is a unique look here for Benson, and it's working to his favor right now behind the wheel, the 10 car manning in P4 as Colin Forster now will have to try to fend off his own teammate, AJ Green, who started further back in this field. But your defending champion has done a solid job to just have a good opening 3 laps and already step himself into the early half of the top 10. That may be just the agenda for many of these guys, Francisco. It's not to be the fastest. It's not to be the outright best, to chop off lap time and have the best out of everybody. It's mostly just to survive, because guys in front of you, they may be prone to mistakes, and once they make those mistakes, it's hard to recover from them. And if you can just keep yourself on track and be smooth, you're going to gain positions by default.
And speaking of being smooth, the 42 was not so smooth in the S section. He had a spin. Christopher Bishop went around at the start of the S's. Didn't really lose too many spots, only really 2 or 3 because of how spread out the back end of the field is. But and he has actually had it off again at the top of the hill just before the hairpin. You see it right there. So a trouble lap 3 here for the driver of the 42 there, Kenneth. But just a lot of chaos around the whole field. I mean, you said you can make a mistake and you won't lose positions too much because of the spread, and you'll lose time and there's no caution, so you can make that up with the rest of the race. But it's just very tough to do so because it's 35 laps, which, albeit, is a bit significantly shorter than the previous race at Road America, which was about 46, if I recall correctly. So a couple of less laps with slightly faster lap times. This race should be just a little bit quicker, and before you know it, the end of the race will be here. So you have to make sure you make the least mistakes possible, because usually the driver with the least amount of mistakes is the ones that end up being at the front.
So you watch AJ Green here. That's his teammate, of course. Colin Forster up in front. Forster holding in for 5th. Green now just tailing him behind. Hasn't yet made a move. And that could also bring in the 88 of Brandon Banks, who started well in tonight's affair here on the starting grid. And he's done well to keep himself solid. He runs 7th as he chases it up the hill. We'll try to close in here on the defending champion and defending championship 5 driver fellowship from 99 of Colin Forster, as he'll slam up through the gears. Why don't we take a look, Francisco, at what it's like to drive around Circuit of the Americas. A lot of changes, a lot of different shuffles you have to bring in this car. As Colin Forster actually goes off, we'll take a moment to step away from that. Forster goes off, and he's going to go for a spin.
A slide, and he's going to almost get into the 88. He does lock it down and point it in the right direction. He's going to try and get back going again. It looks like only 2 spots lost at the moment. Not ideal for Forster, and that's a very tough spot as well. The S's with the stock cars, you're sliding a lot. If you carry too much speed, you'll just go deep, and you can't make the corners the way you're supposed to. He carried a lot of speed through there. The back end slid at the entry. It wasn't going to stick after that. Decided to go straight to avoid spinning the car out, but unfortunately, just as he got back on the asphalt, the car started coming around. Good job to lock it down to avoid getting into one of those other 2. The damage has been done. He's lost the time, and there you see another teammate of his, Adam Alishire, a little bit further back there. And right there, you see the gap between 1 and 2. Austin Reedy, Lawson Peel, 2 seconds. Then you have to go another 7.5 back to Craig Lonesonger and Kyle Benson, are battling now for that 3rd spot. Benson's closed up to the back of that 13. He's going to try and possibly make a move in the next couple of laps here, Kenneth. And, looking at the fuel window and how far the fuel can last, a 1-stop is going to be very difficult today. You could probably go 15, no more than 16 laps here on fuel, and that's almost halfway on fuel. So I think you're probably better off trying the 2-stop because of the long course that it is. To try and save fuel, you probably will lose more time doing so than just coming in for the extra pit stop. So I think today you might see most of the field try and go for that 2-stop, try and go for about 11, 12 laps each.
See how the strategy plays out. Of course, the leaders will end up in a situation where maybe they stay out a little longer, or maybe they close in sooner on the pit road. We'll just have to find out. Here's look at Kyle Benson, of course, just got around the 13, so was putting the pressure and found the space in turn 20 and the braking point to do so. Still underneath there, and Kyle Benson, he'll now put himself into 3rd here, although he's got about 3.5 seconds between himself and Lawson Peel, who occupies P2 out on the racetrack. So, I mean, this is just a staple, Francisco, of the workhorse racing. You're going to see a lot of separation. You're not going to see a lot of drivers fighting between each other like we obviously see at many of the ovals. It's just the nature of what this type of racing is. You don't get cautions here on the iRacing sim. Of course, race control, the manual admins can decide to throw yellows whenever they wish, but they are not going to issue any stage breaks or anything like that throughout this race for the moment. So they're just going to let this race ride from start to finish. So most of the time, Francisco, it's just all about keeping yourself on track and really racing the track more than you race others, as it looks like Alishire and Forster had a bit of issues there racing the track there through the S's.
Yeah, usually every road race comes down to you just racing the track and running your race, because there's such a pace difference between most of the field that you have to just worry about keeping your car on the racetrack as fast as you can, but knowing your limits. Because if you're not the fastest car on the racetrack, you have to sort of accept that, because if you try and push yourself to be that fast, you're just going to make more mistakes, and with no cautions and any of that to help you out, you're just going to lose more than you gain. So you have to kind of take the safe approach with that. Go as fast as you know you can, minimize your mistakes, because you might be able to gain positions that way. It's usually the smarter approach on these road courses. There you see Lance Hill down in 22nd. Had some issues there on the opening lap, and unfortunately sees him down the order. And one thing I do want to discuss with you, Kenneth, here is track limits. And with this track, it doesn't have a variation. Oh, right there, a spin. The 99 of Forster around.
That was a 99. Forster got into trouble. Looks like Alishar followed suit. Alishar will gain P7 out of that, but it wasn't the cleanest way to make a pass complete. It looks like both of them may have found trouble around a certain part of
Marky
the
Harris around the
racetrack.
final corner.
We'll see. Mark Harris looks to be around. We'll take a look at the replay, see how Forster and Alishar got into trouble. This is the back straightaway. Hard braking zone into the left-hander. Looks like Forster just overshot, extended there onto the green rumble strips. And it looks like right here, maybe just lost the car, and the 14 maybe have followed suit right there.
Lock up.
Sends the back end, and the 14 nowhere to go. Just smacks right into him as Lance Hill merely gets by.
You saw the lockup there on the right front. Just a little bit of wheel hop as he hit the curb, and it really upset the rear of that race car. Had to check it. There you see Marky Harris sitting off the final corner. Must have had an issue. See braking for the final corner, and actually he's just going to pull it over, and I don't know what this is. He whips the car around, but he just kind of has it off the track there. Not sure what that was all about, but he brings it to pit road, changing tires. Not sure if he's going to try and go back out or what the deal there is, but he's going to take care of that. But I was talking about just before, Kenneth, and actually looks like Peel maybe had a moment. We see Benson has passed him for P2. I think Peel may have had a problem there in Sector 1.
Yeah, it might have been a mistake there out of the 12, but I mean, bring up a good point though with the track limits and how far you can overextend things. And we really didn't have this discussion at Road America because I brought up the fact that you've got a lot of grass around you at each end of the track. So if you kind of go a little bit further off, if you maybe overshoot the brakes just a little bit, if you don't roll the car to the apex in the best way possible, you can't really lean on the runoff or lean on rumble strips at the exit of corners to help you because most of the time you've just got a lot of grass. Here though, you've got a lot of asphalt, a lot of rumble strips, a lot of room to have mistakes and to just try to recoup from them without ending up in a death sentence from the grass or the gravel. But the thing about this Road America or Circuit of the Americas track as opposed to Road America is that you are very prone to DQ from the track limit X's as well.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't think there's any limits here. If I'm correct on that, I don't think they have. This particular league has any incident limits to where a driver, if they reach a certain amount, that they'll be disqualified from the race. So they'll rack up as many as possible. And of course, you want to keep that to a minimum because it's not so much as the X's themselves as you see they work around the lap of traffic. It's if you go far enough off the racetrack, and when you go wide, it'll give you a slowdown, especially off of turn 19. That's probably one of the corners that stands out the most with the track limits. And of course, track limits is normally something you talk a lot about when it comes to Formula One, usually it being the white lines, but NASCAR, you usually see them going all over the place as long as it's paved. And there's no version of Circuit of the Americas which allows that. And if they did, I feel like it'd be even crazier just because you allow the drivers to go all the way wide and use up all that racetrack. But of course, it's very difficult to actually scan that because what do they constitute as on the racetrack, off the racetrack? I presume they just try and find the coding for the pavement and they label that as racetrack. But of course, that also makes it just as prone for drivers cutting the track, intentionally and all that. So I guess that's where they're coming from with that regard. But either way, they have to try and keep the car as best they can on the racetrack. See right there, Benson a little bit wide, a little bit flip up as he goes over that little hill. Peel's going to have a shot going into the hairpin. We're going to see him braking late. We see Benson staying way to the inside, slowing way down. He's going to try and stick it around the outside, goes wide. He's going to try and pick up a draft here on this long straightaway, a very long straightaway, though no DRS here. These are stock cars. He's going to try and pull in behind and try and get close to the rear bump. You see him actually getting a run here. He's going to try and set one up for the outside here going into this hard braking. So he's going to actually brake early. So Peel's going to be the one at the advantage at the entry of the corner. And now we'll see what Benson does to set himself up through this section because you can take so many different routes through here.
That's a very interesting part. And I've driven this track before in Gen 6 when it was a part of the 2021 schedule and with this next gen car, and it's just so tough to get this third sector down. Of course, I mean, you can have trouble at any part of this track. Of course, sector 1 where you have the dive deep into turn 1 going up the hill. People have issues with that, trying to make the radius. And then you have the S's, which is so hard because you're basically at a standstill between the throttle and the brakes. So you kind of have to alternate between the two and not give full input on either. You just kind of have to toggle between the two, and then you end up in the very fast section that leads you to the hard braking zone where you really got to hit your marks there or the car will really lock itself up and you have no steering input whatsoever. And then there's that last section which has a lot of flowing sections And then, of course, that little entry into the left-hander, it's kind of like a triangle, if you will, and you have to really arc yourself in there. It's so tough to get the car planted, especially with the added downforce, even under the wing or under the body that these cars have, as Benson dove it deep into turn 1, almost got into the rear of Peel, but decided better and hopped on the brakes even further. Got away from almost catastrophe there to the front end of the Camaro, but he will keep it straight. I mean, it's just a tough track to really get around, and when you look at these guys mastered and set fast lap times like you're seeing Austin Reedy do right now, it just looks easy from a third person, but in first person, it is no simple task.
Oh yeah, this week was actually the first time that I was driving on the racetrack at all with a stock car. I've only driven around here with the Mercedes, and I think the Indy car only once. So to drive here around a stock car, I found it very difficult to do so. You see your race leader right there, just in a league of his own, really, as the lap traffic gets out of his way there, going wide to allow him to run the racing line. But yeah, it's very difficult to drive a stock car around here. It's just the weight of the car, the way the weight shifts, and all the downforce and all of that plays into this race car. It makes it very hard right here when you're trying to drive into the S, because you can't flick the car like you would with an open wheel car. It's got so much downforce you can just turn it at will. Here you have to manhandle the race car, but slow it down enough to actually make sure it gets into the corner. Otherwise, you'll end up like Colin Forrester.
Speaking of Colin Forrester, he may have to worry about traffic behind him for running position, because you're running on board the 00 of Jesse Breeze, who, by the way, started dead last in this race. Did not even set a lap time in qualifying out of the entire field. And he's got a shot at P8, so I can just tell you what staying on the track does for you in the long term, as we've completed 8 laps of the 35 scheduled in Circuit of the Americas. Matt Roberts is behind this 00 car of Priest, so this is 8th, 9th, and 10th you're watching right now as they approach the long back straightaway. And we'll head to the hard braking zone, this left-hander coming up in just a couple of moments. So for this instance right now, of course, the majority of the field separated. Really haven't seen many incidents where drivers have spun by themselves, especially as of late. I don't want to jinx that, but we'll just have to see over the first 9 laps as Pia will come across the start-finish line. Just an update, we have 16
car stopped in turn 1.
Car stopped in turn 1. Gonna find out who that might be. That is
right there.
The 35, Cody Neal, seems to be in trouble.
Yeah, it happened just before the leader got there too. I was watching Austin Reedy, and right there going into turn 1, you see the 35 actually was exiting pit road and trying, I guess, warm up the tires, but he's going to go wide into turn 1 and just kind of leave the car there. I'm not sure if this was done to allow Reedy to get by and the rest of the leaders, but he kind of sits there for a while. There was a gap there where he could have continued going and allows a couple others to go through. I'm not sure exactly what the plan was. There's a spin there that's Michael Newbraw just in front of him.
Michael Newbraw in trouble. He goes around. A couple of the leaders are getting by. There's Craig Launslager in the 13. He was able to man himself around. Newbraw had just gotten past him and just got lapped by your race leader as Bishop in trouble again. And this is all happening in front of second and third and even first. It is so tough for all the leaders to even get by with a clean lap as Bishop will go around again.
Another spin. It's been a troublesome race so far in the opening 9 laps for the 42 of Christopher Bishop. You see another car approaching him back there. That's Michael Newbraw. He's able to get around that, the 42, as he was having to figure out which way he was going to go. But Kenneth, we're seeing a lot of examples of, you see right there, the 3 of Logan Joyner, just in front of your top 2 runners again. That's been a trouble spot for that 3. I've noticed a couple times he's gone very deep into that braking zone and has ended up into the barriers. A lot of trouble around this racetrack. It's catching a lot of drivers off guard. I've never done a race here. I never did the officials when they came here last year. I didn't do them this year. I do have a league race in FIRS later this season in the playoffs at COTA. And seeing this race, it kind of has me worried in the sense of what others are going to do. Hopefully I can just keep my race car on the racetrack.
Well, luckily for you, your league run Gen 6. So, I mean, they have side force. It's probably easier to save that car. This car is
it's got more horsepower.
Yeah, a lot more horsepower, and it's a lot easier to save control. This car more snappy, and it's more unpredictable, along with the unpredictability that we've seen so far in this race as of the first 10 laps. What I was about to mention before we talked about the couple cars going off track and stopping was that we had 16 cars, now make it 15 on the lead lap. Michael Newbraw is the first car at 1 lap down, so theoretically, if we got a caution, he would be the lucky dog, although that is not the case, as that was very, very close. Out of turn 20, Brandon Banks, who's running 5th, almost slammed into Michael Newbraw, who went wide out of the corner. There's AJ Green in P6 to go by, but Newbraw is a lap down, so is Bishop. Lance Hill is 18th, 1 lap down as well. Cody Ivey, Logan Joyner, and Cody Neal among those that are 1 lap down or more. Looks like Logan Joyner and Cody Neal are 3 laps down respectively. And then you have 2 drivers out of this race. Mark Harris in the 5, who was in trouble earlier on tonight, and Brian M. Smith, who is 7 laps down and counting, got into the first couple of spins, first couple of mistakes on the opening lap of tonight's race, and he was yet to recover, went down pit road, and really that's the last we saw of him in tonight's race. So again, unfortunate, Francisco, that every time we go to these road courses or anytime we go to a track where it looks like he's going to be the best, he's going to be the most dominant, he ends up in somewhat of a lot of trouble, and it takes him out of the race early. It really doesn't show you the potential of what Smith can do as a race car driver, unfortunately.
And you have to think it might be the car, right? Because we've seen him be very dominant with the Gen 6, even when he's had his respective issues and what you have. But so far in the 2 races, at Road America, he didn't really get involved in an incident in particular. He just did not have the pace in those laps that he was in, and he tried starting from the back, tried to work his way from the front. He didn't set a lap again today, started in the top 12, but of course had a couple incidents there on the opening lap and decided that he was going to call it a quits, and that's 2 for 2 in terms of retirements at the road course. He's, of course, trying to look for some success at Watkins Glen. It's the track he won at last season, and that might be his savior, the one track he does have familiarity when it comes to road courses in this league. So he's definitely going to be looking forward to that one. And we'll just have to see if the bad luck continues, if it's the car, or if it's just an issue that he's had personally with road courses as of late, because we've seen him be very successful in the past. And usually a driver that's successful on road courses, it translates everywhere because it's a skill that you can carry to other tracks. So we'll just have to see what's the case. But I do want to mention this, Kenneth, before green flag pit stops do start, Lawson Peel's starting to run down your leader about a second a lap, because he's been putting up 2:14s, very high 2:14s, while your race leader's running very close to 2:16 flats. So almost a second difference between the top 2 in terms of speed. Peel had that trouble earlier in the run where he ran a really slow lap time when he had a mistake at the end of sector 1 at the very start of sector 2. Actually, look right there.
Reedy went
right
off.
there, Reedy.
That's a pass for the race lead. You were talking about it, that Peel was running in, and it looks like Reedy may have fallen off on the tires or maybe just start to make more mistakes, but it was that slight spin there in the S's that gives Lawson Peel control of this race from Circuit of the Americas. We're going to find out what happened, and it was indeed a standstill spin. Watch here, entering through the S's. It looks like right here the car will snap, gets out of control, and nothing he could do to save it, but luckily holds on to the brakes enough, slows the car enough to avoid that outside wall. And there's the pass complete. You'll see the 12, and there it is.
And lucky enough to not hit anything, and of course not damage his race car, but also not to lose more time than he did, because he easily could have lost more time in that spin, and of course even made his race even worse. But he's still in P2 and still has the leader in sight. But of course, like I mentioned, he was closing in on him. So now Reedy has a tough job of what he has to do to try and keep up with the 12 and then figure out how to be faster than him, because he was faster early in the run, but right now he's not faster than that 12. And you have to put yourself in the position of the 11. When you had that big lead, it was about 7 seconds. Was he pushing hard because he saw the 12 gaining ground? Was he pushing hard because he was trying to make a push before entering pit road? You're not exactly sure, but once you see that the gap was shrinking between 1 and 2, that does start creeping into your head that, hey, this guy's catching up to me. He's going to be here soon. Maybe I have to try and give it a little bit more effort to see if I can prolong that. And that might be where the mistakes come, because that's, well, he's proven to be fast on these courses. Of course, had a chance to win Road America before that contact with Lance Hill, but he's trying for some redemption here.
That's a good point there you make about Austin Reedy having that huge lead, and what he was thinking about while he was in control of the race by a healthy margin is it looks like Cody Neal is off track again, the 35. There he is on the outskirts of turn 1. I think just watching maybe the field coming up the hill, he's got a good look there. There's Kyle Benson. He's going to have Craig Lounslugger sooner than later, just finding the way to get back on track as clean as he can. But you can also pose in just the fact of the driving styles between these two. It looks like maybe Peel has been more conservative on his rubber, maybe a little softer, maybe a little more calm and collected there behind the wheel. It looks like Reedy may have been too aggressive pushing the car naturally, even since the drop of the green flag, that now as we approach in to lap 12, this is the threshold where the tires really start to fall off the cliff. I think Reedy has finally found that cliff, and also compounded with the fact that he went for a half spin, and those tires must be absolutely shot after that spin there that gave Lawson Peel the lead.
Yeah, you bring up a very good point, but he hasn't exactly lost ground. He's actually kind of gaining it back slightly. And of course, when it comes to road courses, the primary tire you're trying to save are the rears. You usually rarely ever drive the front tires off. You have to make some aggressive inputs continuously to wear the front tires off at a road course, but almost all the time on iRacing, you're trying to take care of your rear tires to make sure you can put in as much full throttle as possible without killing those tires. So of course, that's usually the name of the game, and that's what we're trying to see the front two battles. You see a couple of cars having some issues up there. Adam Alshire losing that spot to the lap car of Bishop, but he's going to get back by him again. Or not for position, but the track position, rather. 42 of Bishop. No front end on his race car. Is not cutting down pit road. You see car behind going wide as well. I think that's Michael Newbraw. But speaking of going wide, Kenneth, I have noticed a line that the leader's been running through that corner right there at the top of the hill, on the exit of that corner, and the next one, for that matter, that they're starting to go a little bit wide. I don't think they're getting any slowdowns when they go through that part of the racetrack. I know for a fact you do here if you go past the green marks with all four tires, but I think if you're able to go do that off of that turn 10 kink before the turn 11 hairpin, you just might get away with it and increase lap time.
I think with the way these X's are formed here at Circuit of the Americas, you can find loopholes, and I guess that's what we're seeing right now. The leaders, the fastest ones, are finding the loopholes to get even faster, which is even crazier to think about now. As they cross the line, it looks like Austin Reedy has set a faster lap time than your leader. 2:15.340. Lawson Peel setting a 2:15.447. So maybe indeed we do see a part 2 of a 2-horse battle for a road course win, except replace Lance Hill, who made the mistake on the opening laps, with Austin Reedy, your Daytona winner. So we'll just have to find out when they get into the first batch of green flag pit stops. And to answer some of the questions in the YouTube chat, there are local yellows on iRacing. It does give you a yellow flag banner when somebody goes around in front of you, or if somebody's in trouble around your part of the track where you are, but there are no full course yellows, so we will not see the pace car at all. We'll just see it stuck on pit road, stopped, waiting for its job to be complete, which is basically just watch over the race until its very conclusion. So we will have local yellows. Guys will be notified when somebody is in trouble up in front of them, but it's up to them to kind of decide where they need to go and where the ailed car is so that they can get around them without any major hardships. So right now, top 5 as it sits: Lawson Peel, your race leader; Austin Reedy in second; Kyle Benson in third; Craig Lounslugger currently wraps up P4 there. You look at him going through the hairpin there, going to the main back straightaway. And Brandon Banks has held in through the top 5. It's been a very solid afternoon in sim and evening overall for all 5 of these guys. When you think about Lawson Peel has won 3 races this season. Austin Reedy has one to his belt. Kyle Benson, he's been kind of up and down throughout the season. We've seen a lot of shining moments out of the 10. This P3 effort could really give him a boost going into the second half of the season. Craig Lounslugger, who has also been close to wins, very good indeed throughout the campaign. And then Brandon Banks, a former Championship 5 driver and one that is consistent as he can be, as you see him wrap around the final sector here at Circuit of the Americas.
And you know, something to mention as well, Kenneth, is the fact that it is rather late day in sim, as trouble for Cody Ivey just in front of your race leader, but it's rather late in the day in sim right now. It's just past 5:30 local time in sim, with the sunset being close to 7 o'clock. It's not going to be an issue because we're almost halfway through this race, but that does play a role into the track temperature that you mentioned earlier in the race. It was 88 at the start. Now it's down to 83. The air temperature has been staying at 71, so it's a rather cool day here in Texas for the time of year, albeit, but it is definitely making things better for most of the drivers, because I've been testing here with over 100-degree track temperatures, and the hotter it gets, the worse it is for the rear tires.
Also, you can look at the fact that the wind has also dropped a couple miles per hour. When we started on pace laps, it was around 11 to 12 miles per hour. It is now simmered to about 8 to 9 miles per hour, which is a slight reduction, but it is a very big deal at a track where you're going to need a lot of cornering speed, and the wind could really affect you when you're going this fast throughout, and the elevation as well could really hit you hard at some parts of this track when you're going up and down, up and down, up and down. And so good to see that the wind has kind of knocked down a bit, allowed these drivers to have more of a calm, airy day here at Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. So we're around this port, Francisco, where we may end up talking about this green flag pit stop scenario. If you're any one of these guys in the top 5, what do you do to differentiate yourself from the leader?
it's very hard to do so because we talked about the potential for the one stop and the two stop, right? But we don't know exactly what the window is. So unless we have a sort of a bogey, a lab rat that really can give us information as far as the fuel window, we won't know what they're going to do. And Peel, trouble getting around the lap car. I believe that car was trying to get out of the way, and he didn't know which way he was going to go. That's the 22 of Eric Schaefer. That's going to cost Peel some time and more trouble for Peel as he's trying to continue to clear the 22. That really allows Austin Reedy to pull in closer. That just lost him about 2 seconds.
That was a terrible part of the track to catch a lap car, especially as Schaefer was going to try to hang to the right side of the track, but Peel wanted to stay there as well. And it was just a clash in them. It was kind of like when you're in high school and you try to get around somebody who's going the opposite direction, and then when you try to go left, they go left. When you try to go right, they go right. It looks like that's exactly what happened to Peel there, and that has lost him a chunk of advantage over the 11 of Austin Reedy. And I figure that Reedy saw that happen. He said, all right, well, this is my shot. I can take advantage right here, and he's now within a second of the 12.
And of course, like we were talking about before, is the pit stops, and it's going to matter because since we haven't seen most of the field pit yet, it is going to start going into that area of, does someone try the one stop? Because you have to be able to go at least 17 laps to do it on the bare minimum, to split it in half. But if you can go longer, now you start opening up a window of, do you pit before, do you pit after? And I think anybody who pits now or lap 16, you're really stretching it on trying to make it on one stop, because you're asking a lot more out of that second run. You're having to try and go as fast as possible. It's very difficult to do so. I think the earliest you can pit and make it is probably lap 17. Lap 17 coming to lap 18. That's the halfway point of the race. If you pit then, you probably have a good shot of making it, as right there you see a half spin out of that car right there. The 76 of Tony Kivet having an issue there off of the hairpin. But Kenneth, this is starting to go into very questionable territory with the fuel and what the strategy is going to be, because, again, we don't know what the exact margin is. I know they get better mileage here than Road America, and they were able to do about 13 or so laps there. So give or take a solid transition, and you're looking at right at the halfway points. I think guys on lap 17 or even lap 18, you're probably going to see them come down pit road then if they aren't running out by then.
Yeah, you're definitely going to see guys try to stretch it as far as possible if they have that idea in their head that a one-stop could be an opportunistic approach, because if there's anything about race car drivers is that they will take the best way out on strategy, especially if it gives them the best case to win the race. And if it's the one-stop, then it is going to be the answer for them. It looks like Eric Schaefer just went for a quick loop around there. He is 15, one lap down. The first car one lap down, as he was the one in front of Lawson. Peel gave him those issues, and Schaefer has a nose ripped off of his Chevrolet
Camaro. Spin in front of the lead.
So it looks like maybe an issue there for the lead. Actually, no, it looks like maybe the lapper in front of the leaders may have had trouble. And actually, there's trouble for former P3 driver Craig Lounslugger. That's Benson and Banks going by.
And damage on the front end of Benson as well.
So we'll find out what happened. And again, the tricky part of the corner, or the track really, is Sector 3. Here's a look on board from Benson, the MS Paint car. We'll try to decipher that later on in tonight's race, but it looks like both of them had issues. Wow. And then Benson overshot. 13 went for a spin, and it's similar to an incident we saw a little bit earlier tonight, Francisco, if you can recall. One car had gone around there, was Forster, and then Alishire had nowhere to go as he also overshot that right-hander, and then they both got into each other as a result. The same case here, just much, much worse.
Yeah, it was deja vu there, and it was not exactly a good kind of deja vu for those guys. And of course, that now they both got damage to their race cars. They've lost time, and that's going to allow Brandon Banks to catch up, because Brandon Banks is now in the 4th spot, just behind Kyle Benson, who has damage to his race car. So solid job by Brandon T. Banks to be running where he is, and kept a clean enough race car to maybe get a top 3 out of this, depending how the strategy all plays out. You see, that's what I was talking about. The line, they're starting to take off that corner. They're starting to go wide. I guess they don't have a slowdown there, and without any X limits to DQ them for the race, they're just going to do that as long as they can, because it's going to decrease lap time, make them go faster. And this is what we're seeing now. The 11 is starting to reel back in the 12. I don't think he's close enough to go for a move entering turn 12. He's going to have him thinking. He's going to pull out a line, doesn't really do anything. He's going to get back into the racing line, into this hairpin right here, and we're going to see what happens in the Sector 3.
It just looked like there, going into the hard braking zone, that really was trying to bait Peel into taking an offensive line, and Peel makes a mistake there, locks up the brakes, and a change for the race lead happens once again. Give it back to pole sitter Austin Reedy as they'll come off the final corners here at Circuit of the Americas and catch 19 laps to go.
It's deja vu, Kenneth. We're having that battle again.
Oh boy. This is going to be intense here if they can stay as close as possible throughout the strategy, because if you can recall to Road America a couple of weeks back, it was Lance Hill and Peel who had made drastically different pit calls on different laps, and they were separated for a while, and then it looked like they merged at the exact right time when Peel was coming out of pit road. Lance Hill and him continued to battle until Canada corner, where it looks like the 12 had met his faithful end when it came to running for the race win there. It would have been win number 4 on his season. He got big damage out of that. But right now, both of the leaders with clean race cars, and Austin Reedy now spreads out to about 1.5 seconds between himself and the 12. Just pushed him into that mistake there for Peel, and Reedy taking advantage of it.
Yeah, the last lap, by the way, at the turn 11 hairpin, Alishire had a moment and had a spin. Was able to keep it going, didn't really lose a position, and still has a clean race car, so no real harm done to him, just lost time. There you see Colin Forster with some damage to his race car, trucking along in the P7 spot. That has not been the race he's wanted, as he has a moment there. As soon as we go with him, just trying to keep the car under him. And as we look through the rest of the field, a lot of cars spread out, a lot of cars with front end damage, no front ends. A lot of modifieds out here racing at Circuit of the Americas today. We have a car on pit road. It's AJ Green. AJ Green's on pit road. And is this a sign to that everybody's going to come down pit road in the next lap or two?
Well, AJ Green is pitting. He is currently P6 on the racetrack. There he is getting 4 fresh Goodyear
Cody
Eagles,
Ivy's off.
Going to get fuel to make it all the way to the end of this race. So very much indeed, Francisco, it could push the leaders to start thinking about their strategy, thinking about when it is the best time to come on to pit road. So Green is the first caller here, the first taker. It looks like all the other leaders really aren't. The only other one to really take a trip down to pit road within the past at least 3 laps or so is the car you're looking at right now. A very colorful 711 Chevy Camaro for Cody Kinsey, who went for a spin on the opening lap of tonight's race. So only, frankly, 2 drivers still in this running order have gone down pit road, but are entering the final corners here at this track for this lap, lap number 17. And so this is the perfect time to take a look at your leaders and see what they call for.
Yeah, it's right now we're almost at the halfway point in the race, so I think if you pit now, you might have to save a little bit in that second run. And I'm going on board with their 11. They're actually going to both come in. Peel's going to come in with them. They're pitting on the same lap. There was a little bit of a coasting there done by the 12 going into that second to last corner. So if they're pitting after 17 laps of racing, they're going to have 18 laps to go. Kenneth, they might have to save a whole lap of fuel.
So they're trying to go for 50-50 strat. There's a look at your 2 leaders, Austin Reedy, Lawson Peel, coming in on the very same lap. And there was a difference there going onto those yellow cones, which is officially the start of pit road when that pit road speeding limit is enforced. The 11 was a little more careful through there, was a little more lenient, but the 12 tried to accelerate hard off of that quick turn off turn 20. As a look at the 11,
stop by Reedy.
Quick stop by Reedy there. Peel will come off, but Peel tried to be as aggressive as possible, and it looks like it may not work to his benefit. 2 leaders on pit road, and Kyle Benson may be the leader here, as he's the only one to stay out of the top 3.
He's able to actually almost take the lead, but unfortunately won't. And he'll definitely lose second here at any moment now with the older tires. And he still has to come down pit road anyway. But he does go a lap longer, Kenneth, which is crucial. Because if those 2 aren't able to make it, he'll have the next most fuel. And Peel's having struggled with tire warm-ups. Almost got into one of those yellow sausage curbs and almost launched his race car there at the entrance of the S's. So he's struggling to warm up the tires. It's probably why we saw him lose touch at the beginning of the run of the race. And he's going to try and build up the temperatures on those tires to see what they're able to do, and it might take him a while to do so because he hasn't caught the 10 either. Right in front of him, Kyle Benson and Austin Reedy able to stretch that lead. So we'll probably see Benson coming into pit road this time, maybe use that fast repair and clean that car up and try and make a run at it. And I think he's still in a decent enough spot. Yes, he's a whole pit stop behind the leaders and in P3, but if these guys run out of fuel on the last lap, they might be able to stop anywhere, because if they have to slow down for any of the corners, they won't have any fuel to accelerate off. So it's up to the 11 and the 12 to save a whole lap of fuel between now and the end of the race.
And it's crazy to think about that really, out of anyone within the top 6, Kyle Benson is the only one to stay out. It follows from your leader, Austin Reedy, and then you skip Kyle Benson for P.O., Brandon Banks, Craig Lonslarger, and AJ Green. All of them have come in for their first green flag pit stop. Not sure if they're going to make another one. And then it's Colin Forrester, the next one following in the same tracks as Benson, who has yet to pit. So a very interesting call by both of those guys here. And it looks like Forrester might have some trouble here. Is the fuel out? The fuel's out.
He's out of fuel. He's out of fuel. He has not come down pit road yet.
The car has lost all revs, and Colin Forrester is coasting it down the hill with no fuel left and another half a track to go.
And this is exactly what the race leaders could face on the final lap of the race. Look where he is on the racetrack. If you run out of fuel here, you are certainly not getting back.
So we'll see what Forrester does, although it looks like the only option here is to
Benson pit.
Close to a halt and let everybody by, maybe take a tow out on pit road to avoid all the trouble. Here comes Kyle Benson, who fortunately made it in on enough fuel. So he's going to now get a fast repair here, a very damaged car after the slight incident in the final corners here at Circuit of the Americas, but he will get a clean MS Paint Chevrolet Camaro. Will be on his way. We'll grab the 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles, and he will be on his way in just a couple of moments. Maybe there will be a change for position here as Brandon Banks may overcome here for third. There he is, coming to the start-finish line, entering turn 1. So indeed, it will be a pass for third, but Benson can easily take it back as he comes out at the perfect moment to stop it away from the 88.
Oh.
But to get a fast repair and to get damage, that is not a good start to your stand.
Yeah, almost getting damage immediately there. He does have about the 2-3 lap better tires than the 88 of Banks, so he should have an easier job in trying to get past once the tires are warm, of course, because he has to warm these up. Low-profile tires do have a bit of a struggle getting up to temperature. But right now, speaking of temperatures, the battle for the lead is going to heat up soon as Forrester is right there in that same shot, trying to make it back, but he obviously won't be able to. But Peel's been closing in on the lead ever since he got those tire temps worked up. And if I'm these two, I wouldn't want to battle. I would try and go as slow as possible and be able to make it to the end and do something like that, because at the start of this lap, they're a lap short on fuel. We saw Forrester run out trying to go the same distance as Kyle Benson did, and it didn't work for Forrester. So if these two are running much faster than most of the field, burning more fuel than most of the field, have to go a lap longer, I find that very difficult to achieve. Not impossible, but you're asking a lot of these guys to maintain that pace and save fuel.
It's going to be a tough task to overcome here for the likes of P.O. Reedy, and even for the guys who pitted on the same lap, Brandon Banks, you think of Craig Lonslarger, AJ Green, they all will have to suffer the same consequences if it comes down to it, and if the worst case scenario arises where they do lose fuel on the final laps of the race and they have to deal with what Forrester is dealing with right now, trying to coast it or maybe find help somewhere out on the track to get back to safety. There's a look at Forrester. Looks like he has found his way down pit road, but it looks like it may have been via a tow, so he is 2 laps down, all the way back in 18th. And just to update you on the DNF list, it has expanded to 4, adding the 35 of Cody Neal and the 3 of Logan Joyner. Hopefully, Colin Forrester will not be the 5th one to that collection, but for Forrester, it looks like his race may be indeed completely over. Here is Christopher Bishop. He's going to end up out of the way. He also got his fast repair, so he is taking a trip down pit road. It looks like Michael Newbraw is next. No issues for the leaders as Newbraw goes way off course. And it's all about the battle between these two as Peel has remained as close as he can be.
I'm not sure if they're saving. I haven't heard any lifting. I haven't heard any clutching going on, so they're not saving fuel. And I think the telling thing about whether this strategy works is, does AJ Green make it on fuel? He pitted a lap before these guys. If AJ Green runs out before the white flag, I'd be very concerned if I'm the leaders.
So there's a look at Green, currently riding in P6. So it looks like we have a change for position once again. Brandon Banks has found his way back to the last step of the podium, as Kyle Benson may have been forced into a mistake here, and Craig Lonslarger will be next on the chopping block along with AJ Green. So maybe how about that? A nice 3-car battle here as Green really stuffing it into the rear bumper of Craig Lonslarger. With about 16 laps to go, Benson will overshoot. It's just a troublesome opening lap run for Benson. There goes the 13. Here comes the 48.
Benson doesn't need to be making these mistakes because you want to be the 3rd place driver right now. You have a shot to win the race as he goes down to the inside of the 13. The 13 is going to try the crossover. Might have the run going down the straightaway. As you see, the sun is starting to shine as it's getting low on the horizon. That might pose a challenge going down the straightaway because that's where the glare is. You can't really see it too much because it's behind the clouds right now, but it might be one in the final 10 laps or so, because that does mean about 30 minutes or so from now, which will put it well past 6:30 p.m. It is almost 6 o'clock here local time in sim, and you see right there Benson able to start pulling away immediately. But if I'm anybody in the field right now, as Benson makes yet another mistake, being third right now is probably the best situation. So Brandon Banks, if he can keep up enough pace to stay close enough to the leaders in case they run out of fuel, he might just back into the win.
It may be the case, and now if you're Kyle Benson, are you confident that Banks and company will run out of fuel, or are you now starting to question your ideology here? And also, we did talk about, or at least you'd mentioned, Francisco, that Lawson Peel had struggled to get his tires up to temp and get into a rhythm. Maybe that's the same thing that's happening to Benson here as he's pitted later. Maybe with the colder tires, it's just a lot harder for him to get back up to speed. So hopefully we get to see him back in it. He's got a good gap, though, to the guys up in front. And Craig Lounslugger just went around for a spin, hopping on the throttle out of turn 20, and that takes him out of the battle for 5th.
It takes him out of the battle for 5th and the maybe win in case they run out of fuel. He was in that deep battle with the 10, and he was there as well with AJ Green. They were all battling fiercely for the 4th spot as well. So he's going to lose out there. The good thing is that he has over 40 seconds to the next car in Adam Alishire, who's right now just entering that third sector going through turn 18. But there you see the race leader, Austin Reedy. He's about to enter this 3rd sector, not too far ahead of Lawson Peel, who's been able to stick it with him. And I'll give it credit to these two. They've been able to stick it to one another. They've been close for the most part. No one really pulled away except for that opening one when Reedy pulled out to a 10-second lead, and then Peel started running him down before the mistake made by the 11. But ever since then, neither one has let each other go, and we've seen multiple passes for the lead. No contact yet, but there's still almost 14 laps to go in this race, and we discussed how long that's going to take, so we still have a racing to go.
So Austin Reedy holds now 1.4 second and slightly growing, fluctuating here between himself and Lawson Peel. And if you can recall, to the last road course race we had, of course, Road America, we know the story with Lawson Peel, the fight with himself and Lance Hill for the win, the great strategy calls they both made, and how good the racing was up until that crash in Canada Corner. But Austin Reedy had a very quiet evening, but a very strong one. He finished just inside the top 5. So if there is one thing to note about this number 11 TJ's team car, is that he may be very quick, although I could have just jinxed him hard right there out of turn 1. Almost about lost the rear end coming down the hill, and it brings Peel back within half a second.
Every time the 11 slips up like that, the 12 is licking his chops to try and get in there and get closer to the 11 and maybe make that move for the lead. Of course, we don't know the fuel situation, and I don't know if that makes it better for us or for Kenneth, because we're not sure if these guys can make it, and maybe they run out late enough in the lap where whoever just stumbles the least amount or the latest is the one who gets the checkered flag, because they're so far ahead of Banks. It would take them running out probably no later than sector 2 for Banks to be able to catch up, because that 3rd sector is so slow that just to make the corners, you're probably going to end up going slow enough to probably end up stopped on the racetrack before the start-finish line. If they run out here, yeah, they're not going to make it back for sure.
I think with this call right here that these guys are making at halfway, and the math that they're probably doing in their heads right now, I think it's just worse for them and it's worse for us. It's just a bad situation overall. We're all up in the air about what's going to happen as Reedy goes off track, and here comes Peel with a chance to go for the lead. Doesn't do so in that corner. We'll wait a couple of more. Looks like Reedy will go wide. Peel will hold on to his racing line, and we have a tough-knit battle for the race lead coming to 13 laps to go.
It's going to continue this way to the end, and the problem with the strategy, like we mentioned, Kenneth, is that it's not an even number. Because the race is an odd number of laps, there was going to be a run that you had to go long to try to split. In this case, the opening run, they went 17 laps, meaning they have to go 18 laps to the end of the race. We don't know how close they were, but we do know is they topped off, and if they were any close to running out, going an extra lap, then that's going to mean danger on the final lap if they don't save fuel or if they burn more. We don't know what the fuel rate is. That's why I think AJ Green right now is probably the best reliable source to knowing how close the leaders are to running out of fuel. We pitted a lap earlier. So if AJ Green runs out before the white flag, there's definitely reasonable doubt or reasonable belief that the leaders won't be able to make it to the end of the race, because that's one lap difference. If he runs out with 2 to go, the leaders will be the white flag. That's just how that works out.
And if you're any one of these guys in the top 5, that run out of fuel by Colin Forster does not give you any more insurance. In fact, it just makes it worse. It makes you question your strategy even more, because you're constantly wondering, okay, how much fuel am I using per lap? What is going to be my outlook here in the final laps of the race? And of course, the biggest question, am I even going to make it under fumes or even under fuel to the checkered flag, or at least get to the front straightaway to finish the race? That is going to be the hugest thing that these guys are going to have to worry about. There's Jesse Priest sliding out of the way for the top 2. Lance Hill is going to be the next lap car to strike. You figure that Hill will not give any of these top 2 any sort of issues here, especially now down the long straightaway where Reedy and Peel could just take advantage of that and get by without any major problems. This is just going to be a big question mark that will be answered all the way at the end. I mean, it was the same at Road America too, Francisco, with the way we ran those green flag laps and with the strategy. Yes, probably we had a better idea of who was going to make it on fuel and how the pit stop strategy was going to work, but we still had a lot of questions as to who was going to be the cast to run for the win. Were there going to be any large mistakes on pit road? Were there going to be any large mistakes on track? That changes the perplexion of the entire race. And it seems as though at Circuit of the Americas, we're finding ourselves in the very same spot with, again, 2 heavy titans running for the win.
Well, the difference was at Road America, we had a crystal clear picture as to the fuel window and how many laps they could go versus the lap count of the race. They were able to go even, I believe, 12 laps or something like that. Each stint or something of that nature, and they were able to make it no problems. But here, because of the way the fuel stacks up with the lap count and all that, you're going right at halfway. And of course, the critical thing that we keep referring to is Colin Forster ran out on lap 18, meaning that's the last lap of the race for the leaders if they have to go that long. And you saw where he ran out, and that's probably the most telling thing. So if I'm the top 2, Kenneth, I have no reason why I don't come back down pit road and make sure I get the car full of fuel, because you come out and you're going to be second anyways. As actually a little bit of a slip there by Peel off of turn 1, or not Peel, by Reedy turn 1, allowing Peel to get closer. If I'm these 2, I come back down pit road. You don't lose any spots coming back down pit road, and you guarantee making it to the end.
And that may be the case, but at the same time, you're questioning yourself as to who's going to stay out. Because if there's the slim chance that one of these 2, let's say if they end up in position to win this race, which it looks like they will, coming to 11 laps to go, if, let's say by a slim margin, either the 11 or the 12 make it on fuel by the time they make that last lap trip around Circuit of the Americas, and then that second driver ended up coming down pit road for more assurance, it probably makes things worse. And then frankly, you've lost the race because you made that call. You're trying to predict what happened. So I figure that is a possible option for all of these guys, but maybe they don't want to extend their hand out and immediately grab the pile, because they don't know what they're going to get out of it when they unwrap and unbox the big question mark that is this race, at least in the final 12 laps. So there's just a lot to consider here. But the one thing to note is that Kyle Benson, who's sitting 5th, is on the longest strategy out of these guys. He went as far as he could 1 lap after the leaders, 18 laps. Colin Forster followed in the same tracks but ran out of fuel. So it's really Benson here that has the upper hand. The only problem is he does not have any track position.
We feel that Benson might be the best on fuel because of when he pitted. Yeah, I do think he might have enough fuel to go to the end. I'm still questionable on the leaders, because if Colin Forster is any sort of guide as far as how far you can go and run out, he ran out on the same lap that Benson was able to come in. Benson was able to do a little bit more fuel management. We saw him a little bit easier on his equipment. We saw Forster have a couple spins, of course. But still, the part that alarms me is where he ran out of fuel. And if the leaders are pushing each other like this for the lead of the race, they're not saving any fuel at all. They're trying to go aggressively for the lead of the race. That might use up even more fuel. So I am very concerned if the top 2 can't make it, Kenneth. But if I were one of them, I would come down pit road, put more fuel into the car, make sure I can get to the end of the race, because what I won't do is lose this race running out of fuel when...
And you definitely are right with the fact that these guys are not really saving. You rode on board with Kyle Benson. It looks like he is not taking any steps to make sure he can get to the end of this race on fuel, making sure he's careful with it. He's just running it normal like he would at the start of the race when you don't have to worry about strategy all too much. And it seems to be the same for these guys, of course, because they're running for the lead right now, rather close to each other. But you also think about the revs that they're using in all of these corners. Here's a look, just a sample from Austin Reedy, your race leader, steps up to third gear, and he's going already into 9,000 RPM territory and immediately shifting down. This is better usage of the RPMs than Peel if you're talking about fuel consumption, but still, these guys are using all the revs that they can, and that is not helping their situation if they are questioning fuel. It just looks like maybe they're hoping for the best, or maybe they're confident that they can go all the way.
It's not just the RPMs, it's also how much of the throttle you're using. The way the fuel injection works is that the more of the throttle body that you have open, the more fuel it's getting spit into the engine and mixed with the air. So the more you have that floor pressed down, the more fuel is being used. So if you reduce the amount that you have that opening by having less throttle applied, you're going to be using less fuel. So of course it's a mix between the RPMs and how much fuel you're actually putting into the engine. And of course, to save fuel, it's a mix of less RPMs and less overall fuel being burned. So that's the key way to save fuel. Neither one of them are doing that right now, which is a concern if I were one of them.
As a look at Brandon Banks, who currently rides third, and he's a far ways away from your leaders. The gap between first and second is now 1.2 seconds. The gap between second and third, or rather first to third, is 45.5 seconds. So Banks is very far off from the leaders. He's got a 12-second advantage over AJ Green, who currently rides in fourth. Kyle Benson is about 2.5 seconds behind the 48, his fellow companion up in front of him, as he racks up the top 5 here at Circuit of the Americas. So we are closing in. Final 10 laps here from Austin, Texas. We continue to wonder the situation between the 11 and the 12, and even everybody beyond that. A majority of the field took tires and fuel around the same time that the leaders did, around the same lap, as Lance Hill goes off course in turn 1 as Jesse Breeze goes by. So there is so much to unravel here. But one thing to note is that Austin Reedy just set a blazer 214.883 last time by, comparative to Lawson Peel's 215.3.
Yeah, that is not indicative of fuel saving at all. So that tells me that they're probably leaving this either up to chance, or they will come down pit road, because again, I just find it very difficult to believe that they won't come down pit road and stay running this pace. You either have to save the fuel, or you commit and you come back down pit road, because the strategy is this: if you stay out and run out of fuel, you risk the chance of losing all your spots. You might end up being the last car on the lead lap, and of course, if you allow Brandon T. Banks to be the leader, there's 50 seconds in there. That's several cars that could be unlapped, and that's even more positions to the point where you could fall outside potentially the top 10. If you pit, you do not finish worse than second. So as much as I would want to win the race, I have to guarantee the fact that I can finish the race to be able to go for the win.
So it's the final sector here from Circuit of the Americas on lap number 26. Looks like
lock up there,
Peel locked it up big time there on the left-hander, so he's going to lose more time here and will flat spot his tires most likely. That's not going to be any good news at all if you're Peel. But closing in on the final 9 laps, lap 26, we're about to wrap up as the leader will come across to turn 19. This will be turn 19 right here, just before turn 20, final left-hander. And then it's just the last stretch. Everybody staying out for the most part. Peel or Reedy not looking to pit road just yet. And this race just continues to get tighter and tighter. By the way, to mention, Austin Reedy's only win in this 2022 season has come at Daytona. It was the opening race of the campaign. Did a phenomenal job to hold himself out front. We've talked about the relationship he had with his Murray Motorsports teammate Kyle Benson, who, by the way, has just passed 4th for AJ Green here, so Green will lose that spot going into that corner. But Reedy, phenomenal job on the drafting, was able to hold out front to win at Daytona. And then there's Lawson Peel, who came away to win the second race of the season and then went on to win 2 more to follow at Las Vegas and at Michigan. None of these guys have won at a road course. Remember, Reedy finished 5th at Road America. Peel finished just short of the race win in P2. So both of these guys looking to become another multi-time effort win. It'll be Reedy's second if he can get it. It'll be Peel's 4th. And the only guy you have to look at within the top 5 that at least does not have a win this season is Brandon Banks. He's the highest runner in 3rd, and Kyle Benson, who is in 4th.
Of course, Brandon Banks did come down the same lap or the lap before the race leaders did. So he is also a concern for fuel. Benson right now does have the most fuel of anybody in the top 5. So if everybody in front of him does not decide to come back down pit road, they're kind of making their bed and they're going to lie in it, and they might just end up running themselves out of fuel and out of this race. You see Benson still battling with the 48 of AJ Green, who I believe won't make it to the end of this race. He was the first one of these leaders to come down pit road. He's trying to go 19 laps on his fuel tank, which if he's able to do that, then I think everybody else should be fine. But considering the fact that Forrester ran out rather early on his 18th lap, it is definitely very dangerous for the rest of these guys. It's too worrisome of a situation to be in. I know that these two, at least the front two, are far gone from the rest of the field, and they both have a chance to win the race. But I would try and go on a different strategy. I don't want to put myself on the same strategy as these guys and try to risk running out of fuel.
So Austin Reedy comes out of turn 20. This will be 8 laps to go. He doesn't go down pit road. Neither does Peel. Neither does Banks, at least for the most part right now. But he is still far ways away from turn 20. So at least for the moment, he's going to wait a couple more turns before he can make his decision. These guys, it seems as though, Francisco, they're looking at 100% commitment here, either to a second stop in the final laps or just going all the way to the checkered flag and hoping it sticks. Lawson Peel lost a huge amount of time there. He is now 3.2 seconds behind your leader. And to make matters worse, Adam Alishar, a lap car, is in between both of them.
And that's definitely going to cost them time at this part of the racetrack. You see Alishar not moving out. He's going to drift over to the left side now and allow the 12 to get through, but not before costing him a good amount of time. And that's going to unfortunately hurt the 12's shot at really being close to that 11. But we see a little bit of smoke there. Maybe a mistake out of your leader has allowed. Actually, no, it wasn't the leader. You see Michael Newbraw with some more issues there off of that corner. He's able to keep it going, though. But as we start getting closer to the end of this race, Kenneth, I'm not sure how this is going to work out for these guys. Maybe they can make it. Maybe they prove me wrong. But it's definitely not looking that way right now because they have not shown any evidence of saving fuel.
You know what? I figured if we had a camera on you right now, you'd be scratching your head the entire time we've been in this conversation.
I'd be biting my nails.
Strategy. Me too. I think I would be in the same scenario, so don't worry about that. It's just been tough to decipher what's going to happen, who's going to come out on top, and obviously, most importantly, who's going to run out of fuel. Or, in the case that we end up all positive, everybody makes it on fuel, and then we just have a run for track position. And speaking of track position, of course, Lawson Peel in second had a moment there with Adam Alishar behind him. Adam Alishar is in P7, though, and he's trying to defend himself against Matt Roberts, who has had a very solid night from Circuit of the Americas. You can't count him out whatsoever. And Francisco, Matt Roberts hasn't had the best of seasons here in Season 4. This great road course affair, if he can finish it up in the top 10, would mean big-time positivity for him moving forward and give him a lot of momentum to do even better in the next couple races moving on to the playoffs.
Yeah, unfortunately, Matt Roberts doesn't have too much luck on his side on the ovals, but how about it today? He's had a top 10 run all day going on. He's been inside the top 10 all race and has been hanging in there, has a clean car, has not had any troubles whatsoever. So if you're the 16 and you had a clean race, are able to come away with a top 10, I don't see how that's considered a good run.
I have a feeling that Roberts is probably the cleanest car of anybody in terms of car contact or off-track issues here. I really haven't seen many places where Roberts has really made a huge mistake. He's just been smooth and calm, just like I said at the top of the show, where all it really takes to be good at these road courses in comparison to a majority of the field is just to keep yourself on track and to avoid any major mistakes, and you should be okay. Just keep it between the white lines and stay on track, and you should be fine. And for Roberts, it could translate to a really solid top 10 run if he could hold on to it in the final 7, coming to 6.5 laps left to go here from Circuit of the Americas. And it has grown. The gap for the race lead still stagnant at about 3 seconds. And Peel has yet to find a way around. That last time by, it was just a far cry, almost a full 2 seconds behind your leader, Austin Reedy, on lap time. So maybe, Francisco, that second pit stop might be worth taking a look at here in the final laps, because this is starting to fall off dramatically here for the 12.
And before we get fully involved in the end of this race, because it's always tradition to bring it up at these road courses, we are, give or take, 10 days away from the Miami Grand Prix. We've talked about it before. How do you feel about it as it's actually getting closer?
I think the anticipation is high. I saw a picture the other day of the marina that they're building. I don't remember what turn it is. You can probably correct me on that. But it's one of the corners on the track where they are set to have a marina where they're going to have yachts and boats on a man-made lake or man-made ocean style thing, whatever you want to call it. It's just a man-made body of water there. They were building that, but they pretty much have the track completely done. And then I saw the lineup for entertainment that they're going to have at Hard Rock Stadium and what they have planned. F1 Twitter and all the drivers and all the teams and all the sponsors are starting to already build up the hype for South Florida's first F1 race. So, yeah, I think the anticipation is high. I'm super excited for it. Unfortunately, not going to be able to visit. The tickets very expensive if you take a look at them on SeatGeek or any other website. But anticipation is very high for what's going to be the second United States road course race in the F1 calendar, and it's going to be the third when 2023 comes up, when we talked about Las Vegas a couple weeks back.
Right about that. Not only is it expensive, but they already sold out. They've sold out a couple weeks back, so fantastic to see a lot of people interested in the race. And I drove by the stadium a week or so ago, just this past weekend for that matter, and seeing the grandstands built up, seeing all the facilities there at the racetrack, seeing how they've actually transformed the Miami Dolphins parking lot into a future Formula One racetrack. It's been kind of astounding to see the progress there, and just knowing that there's going to be racing in that area in just a handful of days. It's kind of wild to think about because it's not too far from where you and I live, so it's just kind of odd to think about racing here in South Florida that isn't at the Homestead Miami Speedway. But I'm excited for it. It's on Mother's Day. It's also my dad's birthday, so it's going to be fun enjoying that race with them too. Because initially that was the plan, was to go there for that race and we all spend the day together. But unfortunately, now it's going to have to be done from the TV's perspective. But that's just fine. It's going to be a mighty fine race, and hopefully it's won by Max Verstappen.
And hopefully it's one to remember that Formula One hopes to stick with Miami for a long time. Of course, Austin, Texas here, Circuit of the Americas, we talked about it to start when Francisco went over the track map. This is, was at one point the only United States race on the F1 calendar was the U.S. Grand Prix, and obviously it's going to stay like that, but they're probably going to alter it to have the Texas Grand Prix now that they have Las Vegas and Miami in the calendar by 2023. But this is the OG when it comes down to United States Grand Prix racing as of 2012 and up. Obviously, before they went to Indianapolis, they've been to a bunch of other tracks in early F1 history before they settled on one track. Now it looks like COTA will be it. So, I mean, it's good to see they're expanding more into the U.S., which is having a growing F1 fan base now with Drive to Survive and just the ultimate marketing campaign that F1 has done for the United States group, which is usually more nationalistic. We're used to watching NASCAR, IndyCar. It's good to see it starting to expand into the global motorsport that is Formula One. Let's take a look back at the race, though. We've crossed the line for the final 5 laps here from the virtual Circuit of the Americas track in Austin, Texas. The gap has slimmed down with a slower lap time via your race leader. It was a 2:15 flat by Reedy, a 2:14.4 by Lawson Peel. And this is the territory where pit stops would happen. But for right now, it has been practically zero by any one of the top 5. They want to run this all the way to the checkered.
And what's actually a little bit more hurting of their situation is the fact that the track continues to cool off. With the track cooling off, that means you run faster and burn more fuel. So it is not helping their situation that it's so late in the day that they're able to turn such fast lap times. You see, it's now down to 79 degrees, just below the 80-degree mark. We started at 88, so it's almost 10 degrees difference from the start of the race. The wind has also simmered down to close to 6 miles an hour. So a lot of factors that aren't favorable to these guys are starting to present themselves, and this is sort of the part of the race where we're going to see how this all shapes out. Again, the car to focus on in regards to the fuel situation is going to be AJ Green. He was one of the first that came down, and he makes a mistake.
He made a fake. I think he was just gonna go in, maybe overshot it and decided, all right, I'll just go another lap. That was huge there for the Colorado Buffaloes, number 48. Take a look at this as he comes through the final corners here in Circuit of the Americas. He'll catch up to turn 19, and there's
I think he was trying to go in.
There was a slight runoff there, right there to the left before turn 20. This looks to me like he was
trying to pit.
He overshot, I think. Yeah.
He was trying to pit, Kenneth, and that's very telling. If he knows he can't make it, that's very concerning for your leaders who have not pitted yet.
So Green will have to stay out one more time. And Green, obviously with that car right there, overshooting his pit stop. I mean, it's clear cut telling us that he is going in for a final stop to end this race. Your leaders are not looking at pit road just yet. And it's 1.1 seconds between Reedy and Peel, so this is far from over. We'll see what Brandon Banks does. He is now a full minute behind your race leader, so he's still got a while before he can get to pit road to start with. Kyle Benson will be the next one, theoretically, to follow if they both come in on their stop. We're at 4 laps to go from Circuit of the Americas. What happens next?
I'm not sure if they think that they're so far ahead that if they ran out that they would still get there. But the problem is, if you run out, you have to consider where you run out. Because if you run out, again, before this tiny bit section, you are not going to get back to the start-finish line at all. So you have to take that into consideration. Of course, you have to also consider the partner you're racing with. Because those two are close to each other, chances are the one who runs out later is going to finish ahead of the other. But if they run out early enough, neither one of them is going to win the race. They'll just beat the other one. So they have to play their cards carefully. They're over a minute ahead of third place. It is a safe entry and exit of pit road to be able to go for the second place position. Actually, we have a challenge for the lead going into the hairpin. Peel is right behind the race leader. There is no fuel saving. We'll see what happens, but Peel has a shot to go for the lead.
And maybe if they're trying to play big bearing strategy here, maybe Reedy and Peel are trying to force each other here into pushing harder so that maybe one will run out sooner than the other. Peel goes for a defensive stance, tries to take a look on the inside, force Reedy into a mistake, but it will not happen there. Looks like Reedy steps out the rear end, and now here comes Peel, almost to the inside, not quite there yet, and we will come up to 3 laps to go from virtual Austin, Texas.
It's very tasty right now, just trying to see what's going on. AJ Green is on pit road. He is on pit road, and he is taking the service that he requires, and again, he pitted a lap before these guys. And we're almost at 2 laps to go. It's going to be very concerning, Ken.
So AJ Green makes his stop. It's a quick splash of fuel. No surprise there. And here come the leaders out of turn 19. Does Reedy come in? Answer is no. Peel will follow suit. So they will try to decide the final 3 laps in style. Meanwhile, battle for third, Kyle Benson versus Brandon Banks.
And that could be the battle for the win if these two run themselves out of fuel, because that's still a possibility. They may have to come back down pit road again. That is the 88 of Banks. I think Benson is still good to the end. He was the last one to come down pit road. This is very intense. I don't know why they haven't come down pit road yet. Maybe they make it, and I hope they do to prove me wrong. But right now, it is not looking like that's the way to go. They have a huge lead on third place. They can come out of pit road with still a huge lead to come to third place. So there's no concern about losing second at all. I feel like they're maybe too absorbed in battling each other that they're probably ignoring the fuel. As you see a stumble there by the 11.
11 goes for a slight detour there through the S's and almost gave way for Peel to take away the race lead. The pressure is really starting to mount up here. If you're Austin Reedy, here comes a move down the hill potentially for Lawson. Peel as the 11 goes for a spin.
He's going to spin off that corner. It's very tricky. And that gives the lead to Lawson Peel. You see Reedy's going to try and get it going again. He's going to be able to do that. He has a long way back to third. But if I'm Lawson Peel right now, I'm going max save. You have a huge lead now over the number 11 car of Austin Reedy. You can back all the way back up to him and have more fuel. You should definitely do that. You see right here, just very aggressive on the exit. And there's a little crest right here as you go to the hill to go downhill, and just too much throttle there. That's how you lose the car there. You're too aggressive on the throttle on that kink. It's not quite flat out. Unfortunately, it's going to hurt Austin Reedy, but that's really going to help Lawson Peel because now he has a lot of racetrack to save fuel, and if I'm him, I am doing it to the fullest extent.
I was just about to mention that corner there, left-hander, you go downhill and you cannot go full throttle because you do not have enough downforce to bring the car down there with 100% throttle input. So you have to lay off and you have to really be careful with your input so you don't spin the car. And it's exactly what happens there to Austin Reedy, a potentially fatal mistake out of the TJ's team, Chevrolet Camaro. He is 5.7 seconds behind your leader and closing, so it's not like this race is officially over as we'll crest over to 2 to go.
He's saving.
But it is
Lawson
just a
saving.
big gap that Reedy has to overcome. As here's the look on board from Peel as he comes off turn 20.
Lawson Peel was saving. He was clutching it. in that last section. You see he's kind of shifting a little bit earlier, goes all the way to 5th gear. He's going to clutch it there again with 2 laps to go. I'm not sure if this is early enough, Kenneth. They should have been saving a lot earlier because it's very difficult to save at the road courses. You see he's going to shift up early again, and this is going to be what he's going to try to do. We're going to ride on board with Austin Reedy. I think Reedy's a little bit more concerned with catching him, probably figuring out that they're both going to run out. But if they're going to run out, Kenneth, we're going to find out in the next 5 miles.
And that's the reason why the gap has now shrunk to 3.2 seconds and counting. Reedy's just trying to get himself back in the game, while Peel saw the lead that he got via that spin, and that is now deciding, all right, I'll save some fuel here, maybe get myself some extra drops to get to the checkered flag. And to think that this is far from over with 2 laps to go. Matter of fact, 1.5 laps left once they crest in the middle of the back straightaway. It is unbelievable. Still gap at around 3.2 seconds. Now closing in. There's Reedy there before the left-hander. And it only gets tougher for Peel, who now has to manage fuel and has to manage a charging Austin Reedy behind.
Here's one thing that we now know for sure. Peel has got to have just the slightest bit more fuel than Reedy. And if he runs out, then that definitely means the 11's going to run out before him. But if we see Reedy run out at any time, the 12 is not going to be too far from that. You see the 12's just trying to take it easy. He doesn't care if the 11 catches up. At this point, he has more fuel than him. But the question is, can he make it to the checkered flag on the very next lap under power? Because, again, if you are running out before this tight section, you have a very real chance of not making it back, and that could just end your chances at a top 10 for that matter. That's just the big risk. He's taking it very easy, and as he works his way through turn 17 and 18, this triple right-hander here at Coda, he's going to come and take the white flag, Kenneth, and he's going to try to see if he can make it to the end. Very close on fuel. What's going to happen?
Think about where Colin Forster lost fuel. First sector of the Circuit of the Americas track and limped it all the way to a stop before towing into pit road. Does it happen in the same manner to Peel, Reedy, or anyone else? White flag in the air. One more trip around Circuit of the Americas, our very first race here for the 4Wide Racing Cup Series. It's a chase back up to turn 1. Lawson Peel trying to hold on to 1.5 second lead. He'll overshoot the first corner just a bit. Reedy will follow suit and do even worse here. Gap will grow, and Peel continuing to hold on.
But he still has to keep saving fuel because I'm not sure what his situation is. So far under power as we go into the S's for the final time. On board with him, trying to manage this, trying to keep the car on the racetrack, and trying to save fuel. Reedy's still not far back. He's close enough to be in striking distance if the 12 stumbles at all. But it's going to come down to, can he keep the car on the racetrack? Can he limit the mistakes? And can he keep the car under power? And so far, again, still the case. He's got just over half a lap to go as he comes down to the hairpin.
And one thing for Peel, you also have to keep into consideration, him now clutching and coasting and kicking it back into high revs means that this car could shake up the rear tires, the differential could go out of whack, and he could end up in a drastic mistake that sends him out of this race win. Seen it happen before. I've done it before in the sim. You go down a couple of gears, you go into the clutch, and then when you kick back up, the car just immediately snaps into reality and sends you for a ride. It has yet to happen to Lawson Peel, who's, by the way, looking for win number 4 on the calendar. He has yet to win a road course race in this Season 4 campaign. First one came at a short track. Second came at a 1.5 mile venue. Third one came at a 2 mile super speedway. One car up in front looks to be Tyler Murray, but it will not play a factor. Here comes Reedy, 0.8 of a second, closing in on the 12. Does Peel have any more fuel left? Here we come to the final corners at Circuit of the Americas.
At this point, all it takes is a stumble. He's still under power, so that's a good sign as far as where they are. You see Reedy behind, trying to close the gap. He's got one more chance. He's going to slide it through here. He may have one more shot at it going into the final corner. Does he send it? Does he settle for second? As we go through the final corner, it's not enough. And actually, the
Peels around.
He spins off the final corner. Austin Reedy's going to the line and win.
Austin Reedy gets win number 2. How did that happen? As Peel makes a mistake in turn 20. Austin Reedy wins from Circuit of the Americas.
Lawson Peel went over the radio. He said he ran out in the final corner.
There he is, coming to a full stop it looks like Reedy may also end up without fuel. He can barely move his Chevy Camaro, which now has no
No
front
fuel
clip.
pressure.
But Austin
Wow.
Reedy, via miracle, a couple of 100 feet before the start-finish line, wins his second race of Season 4. There's Alashire to give him a bump.
Wow, they made it to the mark. To the mark. I give them credit. It was right on the mark, but they both did run out right then and there. But if you're lost, I'm not sure if him being out of fuel caused him to. I think he was out of fuel there because he doesn't look like he's accelerating much. Is he actually right here downshifts?
He's sputtering by then.
Right, yeah, right there. You can tell he's sputtering as he tries to go full throttle, and it just, wow. And there you see Reedy just happy he wins, and right there, as he was trying to do a little half burnout, was had his issues there. But wow, Kenneth, this is. I've never seen such a hectic end to a road course before. Fuel mileage, a spin off the final corner, a last lap pass. You can't ask for more than this.
That is a beautiful shot at Austin Reedy on the in-car cam, because out of corner number 20, when he gets by the 12, his car loses all fuel pressure, and you can hear the revs absolutely silent. The car is dead. Right there, but right before the line, he's stuttering. His car doesn't know what to do, but he's able to kick it back to cross the start-finish line, and Austin Reedy ends up with a second win. I think he just got pushed all the way to the exit of turn 1, or maybe into the barrier, because he's now without a rear clip on his Chevrolet Camaro. But what an unbelievable finish, an unbelievable strategy race, and Austin Reedy gets to victory lane once again after his first win came at the season opener at Daytona. Let's take a look at the full field rundown. I mean, what a drive. Can't give enough credit to Reedy and Lawson Peel, the two outright best drivers in this field, making it all the way to the final corner before running out of fuel. Peel spun off the final corner and suffers heartbreak once again. A second straight second place finish on a road course, losing to another driver. Kyle Benson, who pitted one lap later than these guys, probably was the safest out of the three. If they had ran out of fuel earlier, Benson probably would have been at the top of the leaderboards. But nonetheless, Benson in the MS Paint car gets a fantastic top three. We'll talk to all three of them before we conclude this show tonight. Brandon Banks, talked about him a bit, but he was rather quiet. That's all he needed to end up in P4, 1 minute and 4 seconds behind the leaders. AJ Green ends up capping the top 5 after making a second green flag pit stop. Craig Lounslugger will be just behind him in P6, and Lounslugger will be the final one on the lead lap. Adam Alashire will be next. He's the first car 1 lap down in 7th. Matt Robertson, outstanding effort for the 16 tonight, top 10. He's going to walk away happy with that as he ends up 8th. Jesse Prees ends up in P9, and the 33 of Tyler Warner wraps up the top 10.
Tyler Murray's getting up into 11th, who had that issue just in front of the leaders on the final lap. Lance Hill, your Road America winner, did not have any luck here today, unfortunately finishing 2 laps down in 12th. Eric Schaefer finishing down in 13th spot. Christopher Bishop had trouble all night, finishing in 14th. Same for Michael Newbraw in 15th. Cody Ivey following that train as well in 16th. Cody Kinsey had some trouble. Quiet night for him in 17th. Tony Kivett had his fair share of issues in 18th. Colin Forrester called it quits much earlier. He finishes in 19th. Logan Joyner also had his fair share of problems down in 20th. Cody Neal in 21st. We saw him parked up in turn 1. Marky Harris saw him parked up in the final corner in 22nd. Brian Smith has been just not at it with these road courses this season. We'll see if Watkins Glen's a different change for him, but another outside of the top 20 finish for the 78. Kevin D'Elia, who missed the start, is going to be in 24th. Same for Curtis Kelly, who rounds out the field in 25th.
So that's your full field look as to where everybody finished at the end of 35 laps from the virtual circuit of the America's track in Austin, Texas. And speaking of Austin, Austin Reedy gets to victory lane for the second time this season, and it'll be our time to take a look at him as we go through victory lane and step alongside the winner for the second time this season. Austin, I think I have only one question for you with only one letter. How? How did you do that?
My eyes were wide open coming out of turn 20. I can't believe. I think what happened was Lawson said he ran out of fuel, and I think when the fuel pressure dropped, it probably kicked his rear end out. And then I actually had a slowdown coming out of turn 19. When you get too wide there, you end up getting a slowdown. But I was just trying to get to his bumper at least or something. And so he spun it, and I had to stop, and then I just gassed it up, and I have 0.06 of fuel left crossing the line there. So then I accidentally blew it up crossing it. It was crazy. It was a great race with Lawson the entire time. We were both, I think, within a second of each other for 35 laps at Coda, which is crazy. So shout out to him for that.
And earlier in this race, on the first green flag run, before you guys had made that pit stop, which would ultimately be you and Peel's last trip to pit road, your one and only stop here tonight in this 35-lapper. And you saw Colin Forster lose fuel pressure in the first sector of the track, and lose fuel pretty much took him out of contention for this race, even for a top 5 or top 10. How was it for you guys, and especially you behind the wheel, to do all the math and to make sure that at least you would have a shot to have some fuel at the end by the time you come off corner number 20 on the last lap?
Yeah, I was concerned about it from the beginning. I mean, it was always going to be, it might be a 2-stop race, it might be one if you can save, but I didn't know how much you could save without losing 10, 12 seconds to the guy. I mean, Kyle tried to save it, and then I realized about 10 laps left in that stage, I was like, there's no way how I can save half a gallon of fuel, so I started pushing it, and I figured I'll just try to save it within the last stage. But I mean, it was tough. I was short shifting and trying to clutch it, and it was close. I mean, Lawson told me he ran out in the last turn, and I had just a lick of fuel left there, so it was a weird race. It was fun though.
And when you come to Circuit of the Americas in Texas, I think you're probably going to expect the unorthodox. It's really the message that we got out of this race here, especially at the end. And usually when we talk about fuel strategy races, there's a lot of luck that goes into it. But on your behalf, it looked like the luck was kind of there in the last lap, but really across this race, you had blazing speed. You started up front. You led a majority of this race, 28 out of the 35 laps led, pretty much all but 7. And you also finished top 5 at Road America a couple of weeks back, which was our first road course race of the season. So how has it been to run so well with these road courses and to hit your marks in a place where really a lot of people can be prone to mistakes?
I think a lot of us here, we've had prior practice here, and this is one of the toughest tracks I've ever driven. I mean, I even told the guys down at my team, slow is fast. You got to take your time, and you just gotta hit your marks, and you will be fast. I mean, there was, especially with this car, you're really not burning tire. I mean, I think if you look back on it, it was lap 34, and there's a bonus point for the fastest lap of the race, and I got it done. I ran like a 2:15.2 or something. That's almost qualifying speed. Like, that's still fast. So it's like, you just got to hit your marks. You got to be on point for every lap.
So you're on point with every lap, and you were on point in the final corner where you slashed by Lawson Peel, and now you join an elite group of only 3 drivers this season, season 4, to have more than 1 win on the season. It's going to be a lot going to the playoffs, no doubt. Austin, before we let you go, here at Circuit of the Americas, to let you celebrate your win and probably put on a cowboy hat on, is there anybody you just want to thank for making this run tonight possible?
First off, I want to thank Lawson. He's a great driver. He deserved that win, and he always raced clean. I had a great time running around him tonight. Got to thank Tyler for the paint, and everybody down at Murray Reed Motorsports. It's always fun racing with these guys here.
You know what? Come to think of it, I think you had the Texas sweep last season. You won at the Texas Oval. Tonight you win on the Texas Road Course. So a big congratulations on that part. But of course, on behalf of our team, I want to send you a large congratulations on this win tonight, your second of the season from Virtual Circuit of the Americas. And of course, we look forward to seeing you 1 week from tonight when we go to short track racing at Bristol.
All right, thank you, boys.
That is Austin Reedy, who ends up just a couple 100 feet in front of Lawson Peel to win at Circuit of the Americas. It's heartbreak for Peel, but no doubt a strong run, and it lasted all the way to the last corner. He stood by with our very own Francisco Bacallao.
Yeah. Well, Lawson, we saw the finish there. It was as chaotic as can be for a road course, and we heard over the radio you ran out on that final corner. So just take us through those closing laps and How was it like trying to battle for the lead on the racetrack and also battle the fuel?
Yeah, I was trying to save that whole last run, and I couldn't really do what I wanted to do because I was having to be conservative with fuel. And I don't know how he saved that much more gas than me, but he did. He, I guess, apparently saved at least a quarter lap or a half lap more than me. And I guess that was a product of him running higher gears through certain areas of the racetrack. But I made a mistake with, I don't know, about 3 or 4 to go and got a little loose, and he jumped out to about a 3-second lead on me. And at that point I knew, I was still a half lap short, and I just decided I'd run him down and I guess try to make him believe I had enough. And that's what I did there, and sort of pressured him into a mistake. And then I thought that was going to work. But right when that happened, I immediately had to just save excessively because I was so short. So had to give him that whole gap right back. And I thought I was going to run out on the last lap there. I had just enough, but I was starting to sputter coming down into 20 there. And I knew I had one more burst in it, like to get some acceleration off that corner. So I clutched it and I kind of rolled in there probably a little faster than I had been rolling in there to just sort of roll through the corner so I could coast off the corner. And, I guess my speed was off. And when I let off the clutch and tried to go to the gas, it sputtered and didn't really go, and I just looped it. So I thought I was going to just be stuck there and finish last car on the lead lap. So
Yeah, that was the concern that I was kind of figuring out what was going on there with your guys' strategy, because you can ask Kenneth. I was basically judging every single second the strategy call because I felt the one stop was possible because of how far you're able to go, and we saw Benson able to go 18 laps, but Forrester with that same strategy ran out trying to go that extra lap, and we saw what ended up happening to him. Of course, so you guys had a really big lead. So the whole time I was suggesting a potential second stop. At any point, did you consider stopping a second time?
no, that would have been detrimental to your race. I mean, there's no way. I don't think you could have won on 2 stops. So it was a one stopper the whole time. Yeah, I just didn't realize until probably halfway through the first run that we were going to have to save even to make it through a full 17 laps to get to where you could go 18 on the second run. So like when we came in, we did 17 full laps plus the pace lap, the first run. And we came into pit, me and Reedy were nose to tail, and I was literally a corner from running out right then. So it was all I had just to stretch that one more lap. And then you had to go an extra lap the second run. And so I was saving the entire second run. I just didn't do it well enough. He did a much better job, and he just ran a really good race. I mean, he was setting a good pace the whole time. I was having to run harder than I wanted to. So, props to him for winning that. I mean, he deserved it. He ran a great race and led most of the laps, and I was just trying to stalk him there and, hope that I would save more fuel or force him into a mistake. And all of that happened, but then I made a mistake, and it was just crazy. But I hope it was entertaining. I'm sure it was.
It definitely was. I can speak for both of us on that. Of course, Lawson, not a win at a road course like you were hoping for here and at Road America. We do have another Watkins Glen in a couple of weeks, but still a solid job. Another outstanding performance from here. Who do you have to give the shout-outs to on helping make this whole thing possible?
Yeah, thanks to everybody that puts on the 4-Wide League, to Kyle and Austin and Tyler for running things, and thanks to you guys for doing the broadcast. Shout out to my Drinking Bros teammates, to Paul's Setup Shop, and just everybody for a really fun race. I mean, that was just a lot of fun. That was a blast. This league, Wednesday night here in 4-Wide, we just try to focus on having a good time and don't take it too seriously. So we certainly try to be professional and put on a good show. And trust me, I wanted to win there, but I'm not too upset about it. I mean, he drove such a great race, and I was lucky to have been in the position to win there. So yeah, I would like to have a do-over on that last corner, but you can't, they don't all go your way. So just a great time. So thanks to everybody.
Of course, we appreciate you taking the time with us, Lawson. Bristol Motor Speedway is the next there. I know you're looking forward to that one, but you're just as equally looking forward to Watkins Glen in the middle of June. We appreciate you taking the time, and we wish you luck going.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next oval, whenever that one is.
So that is Lawson Peel, who comes up short, but just like he said in his interview, a very, very, very positive interview, even regardless of the loss. And we'll talk about that in our final thoughts, how good Lawson Peel has been. But before we do that, we'll talk to the driver who caps off the top 3 tonight. A very interesting paint scheme out of the 10 of Kyle Benson. But nonetheless, it was a fast Chevrolet Camaro that brings him to 3rd here from COTA. Kyle, you were one of the probably 2 or a handful drivers that pitted a lap after the 2 leaders and majority of the field that tried to go for that one stop. What was it like to hold on to the fuel gauge while you were getting through the final corners on the final lap?
That was, dude, I was a lap good. I didn't have to worry about it, but I know I saved way too much when they pitted, and I was in between both of them, so it's just kind of surviving at that point. I made a few mistakes though. If I don't make the few mistakes, maybe I'd be up there with them, and maybe I capitalize on it. But who knows? But definitely, I was good on fuel. I knew I had to save at least a gallon, and I oversaved by a handful. So, but other than that, man, I was set on fuel and just kind of just driving my race at that point.
So you ran the race, and of course you were out of reach from the top 2 to make it for the win, but it was still respectable 3rd place finish. You had a slight battle there with Brandon Banks. I know you got into a couple of side-by-side races throughout tonight, so that must have been a little fun. But walk us through what it was like to manage this Circuit of the Americas track. It is way different from any other road course you visited before. Of course, you have experience winning at the Charlotte Roval. Of course, Road America was earlier this season. We have Watkins Glen that's going to return in season 4. How was it to sort of manhandle this Circuit of the Americas track, which really you can't take notes on anywhere else, and bring it here?
Oh yeah, I've won here in a league race before. I took that knowledge into here, man, but it just flipped it on its head. I didn't run a single lap of practice, so my practice was in practice. So I mean, I was lucky enough to pick it up quick, but man, it was different. It was just it's weird because you think you can really run it hard in the first few laps, but you got to save it, and then once you get that rhythm, and you just get to drive away. But I just took the knowledge that I know of the car and tried to put it to the race, and honestly, it helped. But I mean, just it was crazy, man. It was definitely a different animal.
Different animal for sure, but it looked like you had a good time trying to tame it. And this is a 3rd place finish. Of course, a very good point stay here from the 2nd road course race of season 4. Of course, you don't have a win yet in this 2022 campaign. You would be looking for one to enter into the playoffs. What's the mindset here for the second half of the season to make sure you are a part of the drivers in the group to run for the championship once the playoffs begin?
Getting a fat, meaty W. That would be great. I ain't got to worry about it. I might do another walk-off like I did at Darlington last year. But, if I can get a win somewhere, I don't care where it's at. I think I'll be sitting pretty and, I maybe have a good shot at this year. But, just trying to make sure I can get into the playoffs this year. I've missed a few races because of outside forces and factors. And, just trying to limit that and trying to make sure I put my head in the game and try to win one of these things.
Of course, the win always in mind here for the last half of the season. I think before we let you have the floor to give thanks to anybody who makes it all possible, can you walk us through this scheme? A very different look for the Chevrolet Camaro tonight. What is the idea behind the scheme, and what's it all about?
Oh, it's just have a little fun with it. It's just freaking screwing around at 11 o'clock at night. That's literally what it came out of. I decided to run it. Tyler said don't, and then he's like, yeah, screw it, do whatever you want, and I did. And it's a road course, and I figured I wouldn't get a lot of TV time, but since I finished 3rd, here I am. So, but it was more of a little bit of a gag gift for y'all to look at, and it was a beautiful piece. I'm not gonna lie. Trading Paints did like it. I'm not gonna lie, but it was just a funny fucking joke.
I will say on behalf of our team here, it did look beautiful. It did look different.
Oh,
Hey,
yeah.
you've got a unique number placement. It's not
Hell yeah.
straight up the one that we're using now in 2022. It's a different look and in a different font. So I think we can appreciate it. Yeah.
The kids love it. The kids love it, man.
Yes, that is true. That is true. We love it too here at MaxSpeedTV. But Kyle, for real though, on this 3rd place finish here tonight from Circuit of the Americas, who do you got to thank for making it all happen?
Hey, y'all, man. Everybody here at 4 Wide is just a great group of guys, man. Just we come out here, have fun, be competitive, and shoot it at the end. I mean, it was a great night for 4 Wide. MRMS, Austin Reedy for the win, man. Lawson for giving on a hell of a run. TJ's team and Team Road Designs for making this absolutely beautiful paint scheme. So, and y'all making it happen is it's just a great feeling to be a part of a group of guys that want to come out and race every week. And, and that's pretty much all I got to give thanks to.
Well, we certainly appreciate the time, Kyle. Sir, of course, we certainly appreciate the paint scheme look that we got here tonight at Circuit of the Americas. But for real, we got to thank you for taking the time with us. And, of course, congratulations on this third place finish. I think I'm going to use your words here before we let you sign off. You used the hashtag FuelSaveGang to get the P3, and it all was worth it.
FuelSaveGang, baby.
Congratulations
great,
on the P3, and we look forward to seeing you at Bristol 1 week from tonight.
I appreciate it, man.
That's Kyle Benson. FuelSaveGang is right. He gets the P3. Great race overall for the Murray Reedy Motorsports number 10 Chevrolet Camaro. Francisco, we get time now for ourselves to debrief, kind of wrap up what was a crazy road course race from Austin, Texas in the sim. And I've got two takeaways here after this race. Number one, add more road courses to the schedule because Road America gave us a stellar run for the end in strategy and on-track fighting, and it duplicated itself once again with these characters, Austin Reedy, Lawson Peel here from Austin, Texas. But number two, Lawson Peel is a force to be reckoned with. Brian M. Smith was the road course king, but he may not be the road course king any longer because in 2 straight road course races, Lawson Peel has come up 1 spot short of the race win. It's got to be coming at some point.
It's going to be at some point, and of course we have 1 left on the season, Watkins Glen, but I'm with you on that. But I hope if Tyler hears this, he considers adding both Montreal and Red Bull Ring to the next season's schedule. Make us both proud, and it might just give us some good racing. This car has been fantastic. It's given us 2 great battles at the road courses, and it doesn't get any more dramatic than it does today. You have the strategy, you have the incidents. It was just a wild race from start to finish, and we were able to have an idea on who was the ones going to be battling, but it was never a runaway. And even on the final lap, Lawson Peel had a pretty big advantage on the 11, and he had to save fuel the whole time, and the 11 was just chucking the car in there, trying to close in the gap where he could, and he was able to make it work. So I think it was a fantastic battle once again here from Circuit of the Americas. I can't wait to see the Bristol Motor Speedway next week. We're going to be under the lights from the world's fastest half mile, the asphalt side, not the dirt side, and I can't wait to see what this car is going to bring us there.
And as you look in front of your screen, this is the rest of the schedule as it stands. We cross off Circuit of the Americas tonight. 1 week, though, from tonight, we will have our second night race, this time again at a short track. It will be at the Last Great Coliseum. It'll be the first time we visit Bristol Motor Speedway in this schedule, and practically it's the only time we're going to see Bristol on the schedule also to follow. So maybe it's going to be a big statement night for many drivers in the field to try and master that very interesting track with a lot of banking and a lot of close quarters racing to follow with as well. We've got 1 more road course, so if you enjoy all the road course racing we've seen so far in season 4, you've got 1 more shot to enjoy all the action. We'll be head to the Northeast New York. Watkins Glen is where you'll find our 3rd and final trip to a left and right hand course, but in between we're gonna have a straight up oval stint. Bristol night will be our first trip. It'll be the only short track in this group of venues. Chicagoland will make its first ever trip here on May 11th. We'll head after to Atlanta, Peachtown in Georgia. Then we'll go down south for the virtual Homestead of Miami Speedway. We saw crazy racing there last season. And then we'll head to the Daytona International Speedway on June 1st to kick off our summer stretch before, of course, we get to our first round of the playoffs at Nashville Super Speedway and end the season at the virtual Texas Motor Speedway. So an unbelievable night overall here from Circuit of the Americas. We saw mistakes, we saw spins, we saw battles for position, and most of all, we saw a last lap, last turn pass for the win. Austin Reedy gets win number 2 in this Season 4 campaign. So for everybody that makes this happen, for Tyler Murray and the rest of the admin team and the race council for making these races happen each and every week, and on behalf of our team on MaxSpeedTV and my colleague in the booth tonight, Francisco Bacalhau, my name is Kenneth Bueno. Saying so long from the Wild West, we head to the short track, Bristol Motor Speedway, in 1 week time.